whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say it.
Trying to free your mind, it is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to the brink. A lot of us here have calling.
I can only show you the door.
To awaken others.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Spreading a message.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time is coming.
At a
Train
tipping.
can't be stopped. Momentum is
Right?
already here.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say it.
Trying to free your mind, it is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to the brink. A lot of us here have calling.
I can only show you the door.
To awaken others.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Spreading a message.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time is coming.
At a
Train
tipping.
can't be stopped. Momentum is
Right?
already here.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say it.
Trying to free your mind, it is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to the brink. A lot of us here have calling.
I can only show you the door.
To awaken others.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Spreading a message.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time is coming.
At a
Train
tipping.
can't be stopped. Momentum is
Right?
already here.
Thank y'all for tuning in to The True Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. Finally back. It's been a little while since the last podcast. The last podcast has been getting a lot of views, especially on the clips of the whole Second Amendment stuff that I've been talking about. But I thank y'all for tuning in. Those of you that are coming on X, Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook. YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/the TRU perspective, rumble.com/the TRU perspective, Facebook as well. You can go on the Facebook page, The True Perspective. It's also being broadcasted on my personal page. Pretty soon, I'm going to be moving from a different streaming service to another streaming service, so that I could start reaching out to TikTok and broadcasting out to TikTok, Instagram, Discord, all that stuff. there's some other stuff that I'm going to be doing as well. Got all my waters and drinks in the camera view. But tonight, who we have coming on is Ronald and Andruchuck. I don't know if I'm saying it. Hopefully when he comes on, he can correct me if I'm saying his last name right. But I want him to go over his story about how he had basically his, or quite literally his rights taken away. And we're going to talk more. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, I appreciate everyone that's been subscribing, that's been sharing the live, and then also viewing everything and commenting, because it's been lately, to my surprise, it's been getting beyond the algorithm a little bit. A couple of the TikTok videos have been going semi-viral. Not as viral as I'd like it to be, but I mean, I keep getting hits on them and all that stuff. It seems like TikTok has allowed me to say some of the things recently, especially around the terms of the Second Amendment and stuff, and that stuff has been getting a lot of headway. So, Ronald, I see you, brother. I'm gonna bring you on scene in one moment. Just give me a second here. Thank you for coming on. But yeah, like, I appreciate everybody that's been subscribing to the podcast and been sharing it out. I know it's been a slow process. I scaled back a little bit and then went forward. And I know that I told everybody that I'm going to be becoming more aggressive on this and talking about a lot of things that are just controversial, maybe even ridiculous to some point. When I put the whole, if I were governor, I'm not playing around. I mean, I'm saying it in a literal sense. I don't want to do that, but I mean, if that's in God's plan, then I'll pick up that cross. I'm ready for it. But beyond that, I just want to get the truth out there, and especially with having good people on like Ronald, who has quite a story behind of what he has gone through related to the Second Amendment and in other terms. And I'll let him go further on his story. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate everybody once again for tuning into The True Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. Again, I'm going to be moving from the streaming service to another one pretty soon, probably in the next podcast, where I'll be able to broadcast it simultaneously on like TikTok, Discord, Kick. I'm trying to reach everywhere that I can in order for this podcast to reach out. But tonight we have Ronald on, and I'm gonna bring you on screen, brother. Can you hear me? You can hear me well? Okay, I can't hear you actually. There might be a thing there with a mute. I don't see it. Technical difficulties. Sometimes this happens. It's a new platform. I'm just gonna keep this here. I'm not sure how it look. I don't know if you're on a laptop or a computer or a phone. I don't really remember how it looks like on the phone. My phone here. But sometimes it should give you an option on whether or not you want to have your voice heard. And but yeah, these sorts of things with all the tech stuff. See, that's another thing too. Like, I'm trying to make it where this will be a little bit more seamless. EVMux, I like this. I like this streaming source anyway, but it does pretty well. It's been doing very well for me. It's just that I can't go to. It limits the platforms on where I can stream to. So maybe like come back out and then go back in, see if that works. Oh, you know what? What I'll do is I'll do this, Ronald. Because I might not have restart. I didn't regenerate a link. I probably gave you an old one, so I'll resend it. See if just back out, and then I'll send it to you again. See if that works. That might be the reason why. So I'm gonna resend it right now. Hopefully that works. Yeah. So I believe the newer, so EVMux has been doing. It's a great platform. I think this is the streaming service that I use in order to broadcast over to YouTube, Rumble, X, and all that. All right. Can you hear me? I can't hear you still. Not sure why. You're not on mute on my end. It might be it could be an internal I don't know if you're using PC or anything like that, but if you go to the speaker part of the speaker icon, and then you can go into open your sound settings. I'm not sure what version of Windows or if you're using a Mac. And it should show what your sound input outputs are. And hopefully that'll help. I don't know. I'm not sure where to guide you from there, but so I don't know if you're using an interface beyond that. But the streaming service that I'm using, EVMux, has been very good, but I can only broadcast to 4. If I pay for another tier, I could broadcast about, I think, 8. There's another service that if I pay for their premium thing, I could broadcast to an unlimited, according to what their website is saying. So I think I'm going to go there. I think it's Riverside, by the way, if anyone's out there that's interested in podcasting or multi-streaming. And that's probably the best route that I've got in order to, push this out there. Also, there's some other venues that I want to get involved in too. I've had some discussion with a good friend of mine, with one of my best friends, on doing maybe even some content with gaming. I don't know how well that's going to go over. I see a lot of results on that end. So it would kind of be an offset. I probably wouldn't publish it on this particular channel. Probably start doing it on a different channel. But it's been something I've been looking into. I'm interested in it. But mostly it's just been talking about this main channel, the True Perspective. The main channel of this podcast has just mainly been talking about what's been going on publicly, in Rhode Island or across the US or across the world for that matter. And, like I said in the last podcast, I've just been compelled on, getting the truth out. I did, funny story, I did have a podcast last Friday where a good friend at the time, Will Turbot, Fate Mike Real News, and I wanted to have a discussion with about the Bible and all that stuff. I also had a Pastor Jermaine on. It's recorded. I did not release it because of the ambush style that Will unfortunately had taken. I was very disappointed about that. I definitely expressed that to him off camera. He's definitely been on he's been on like a toddler child type of rage fit about it all. So that was a fail of because it was supposed to be just a discussion. In fact, I wasn't even going to go. I purposely didn't go live for it because I knew that Will was going to be, pretty much ambush the. I think I just heard something, Ronald. I thought I did. But Will was going to be, he just ambushed. He was looking for debate, and the conversation wasn't about a debate on whether or not, the many things that he was asking. He was just asking specific questions about, what did God command and all that stuff. And he was not liking the answers that he was being given. And I'm trying to help you. Hold on, let's see here. Let's see if Google can help really quickly. Emux link sent to phone. Oh, actually, sent to guest. They cannot hear them. So yeah, like that podcast was, I didn't even upload it because Will pretty much, embarrassed himself. I don't want to talk too much about it. I'll probably get more into it on a different podcast. I actually said that I would have him on and then actually have a debate with him. Oh, you know what? Check your browser permissions, Ronald, and see if your microphone is allowed. Hold on, let me. Okay. All right, no worries. I'm gonna take the other one off so there's no feedback. No, you're good. These things haven't kick speaker. Okay. Let me get. All right, that's good. So you're on cell phone. So yeah, I think for it's probably like a browser. It could be a browser issue where you just don't have the permissions of I'm gonna bring you on screen here with me of you don't have permissions on the web browser. Like the web browser just needs to have your microphone on. Sorry about that. I should have. We should have did it a few moments earlier, but it's all good. These things happen. I roll through them. I don't get discouraged about it.
Amen.
How you doing, man? It's this I think this conversation. One, I think I was looking to have a conversation with you prior to all of the stuff that you were going through. I don't know if I had the setup at the time, because I know that we've gone back and forth about many things about God, a lot of things about Rhode Island. You know, the political fire pit that we all go through in this damn state. Especially you're quite the witness to that. So I'm not very good at introducing. I know quite a bit about you, but I want you to kind of introduce yourself, your background. I know you have some background in the political area. We can go over that, and like we were talking about online. We can go on to all those points. I really want you to, talk about your story. What I want you to avoid, just don't say anything that's, if you could say, if you're legally able to say it, by all means, but let's not give them any more fuel for you. You know what I'm saying? So
Amen. Amen.
But yeah, brother, I appreciate having you on and yeah, tell the people where you're from, who you are, and let's get into your story here.
Sure thing. Thank you for having me on. I know we've been talking about getting together for this for a little while. I remember before everything, when everything was going down during the pandemic, we had gone back and forth about some different ideas, especially with my cousin Dan Badandi. Yeah, so it's crazy, to introduce myself. It's funny because everything about my life is now I have zero. So I recently, Hunter Biden in an interview with Tucker Carlson said that he had zero transparency now in zero privacy in his life because everything had become transparent. I don't think that's the complete truth in his case, but for me, having the same charge and going through a lot of the same legal issues, my entire life has become totally transparent with zero privacy. And it's strange because everyone goes through life living with a veil that, they want to show the best side of themselves or what they like to project as the best side of themselves to the public. And for me, everything that was good is been presented, but also everything that may have been considered bad or not okay is
Right.
out there. And so the only way to get through it is to literally to weather the storm and just deal with it. And just literally change for the better at every opportunity. So my name is Ronald Armand Andruchuck. Everyone calls me Ron. I know a lot of people in the state because I've always been active in different types of social activities, whether if it was playing music in bands or getting involved with theater or heavily involved in politics, which took over my life for a long time, in good ways and in bad ways. It's impossible to escape politics. And that actually dawned on me today. when I was thinking about what we would probably want to talk about, and I started like thinking about how politics have played such a huge role in my life, and even in federal prison, the politics are always present. In a family, your roles and everything that you have to handle or balance, there is always politics. Politics are inescapable in life, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born and raised here in Rhode Island. Went to Catholic school. Was Catholic for the majority of my childhood. I started to break away from the faith in my high school years, and a lot of that was due to a lot of resentment towards concept of God and God, and then the concept of spirituality and worship. So it sent me, and then of course the convenience of having Satan everywhere and we're in the world and around us. It was so easy to just fall into the trap of apostasy and turning away from God in every way, shape, and form, living a life of sin. And you know, I was close with my family growing up. I never really got in trouble for much. I always wanted to. My dad was a wounded Vietnam vet, so I dealt with a lot of like his traumatic experiences. Like he was wounded twice in action and things like that. He got out of the military before I was born, but he was in for a long time, like over 10 years, pretty close to retirement of 20 years. He did get a 20-year pension, but he wasn't in for the full 20 because he had gotten injured and again. And it was a long story, but basically, having been raised in a broken home, and living in a broken society, it led me to want to study psychology. So when I barely made it through high school, but once I made it into college, I felt like I was thriving. But it's a double-edged sword. I felt like I was finally taking in all the answers that I ever wanted, but they were secular in nature. So I was learning a lot about how people work, how people interact, what society's all about, but I was only seeing the secular side of things. So it sucked me right in, and I was indoctrinated. But the interesting thing is I never was trusting towards government, and probably because of what happened with my father and seeing how he was treated through the VA and just other things in general. And just seeing people argue and wars around the world and history in general, I just knew that government could never truly be trusted because you can't really truly trust human behavior and human nature because it's corrupt. We're all in a fallen state. So if politics and government, government is ruled by the concept of politics, and that's embedded with human nature and psychology, then it's completely flawed. And putting our trust into that is really just kind of a form of idolatry. But we can prevail within that, I think. I think we can prevail so long as we keep morality, keep our eyes on morality and thoughts with God and morality. I thought I was becoming so wise and intelligent when when I broke away and was an atheist. And in the end of all that, it was like I really didn't know anything at all about anything. It was like I was role playing. I was like LARPing, like live action role playing all these different roles,
Right.
Whether if I was the black metal musician or because I had gotten pretty good notoriety with music. I'd done some albums that were released by huge labels and stuff.
Nice.
And I thought that, to me, that was like, those were my trophies. And I never, instead of stacking trophies of like honor and courage and just like proper discernment and righteousness. I was more focused on what I can get now because I thought this is our one chance at life. So, like everyone says, live every day like it's the last. But without God, that's the most selfish, self-defeating, self-destructive approach. I think it's empty. It leaves us empty, and we end up lying to ourselves
Right.
to comfort ourselves. So, yeah. So pretty much, that's kind of like I'm just kind of giving like the foundations of my thought processes early in my adulthood, leading up to the events that happened
What
during
made,
the.
not to cut you off, what made you go from believing in God to atheism and back to believing in God?
It's kind of crazy because I do try to analyze that and break it down because I really want to know. I really want to know the answer because it can save so many lives if we can really like learn from this.
Right.
I remember so in my household, everyone, they were believers. My stepfather, my mother, my sister, extended family, my half siblings with my dad. So everything outside of that was abnormal to me. So when I would meet friends I remember a friend who had his mother was a Wiccan, a practicing witch. She was a self-proclaimed witch. We used to play across the street out of convenience. We were friends. We didn't go to school together or anything, just living close by. And I remember one time when I had mentioned something about church or God, they were like making jokes about it. And we were I'm talking like 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. And I remember it was so shocking to hear someone say that their family didn't believe in God, because that's kind of like all I knew.
Right.
And that was like a seed planted, because I remember they no longer wanted to be friends, and then I think my mom may have influenced my thoughts and feelings about not wanting to be friends with somebody who would have complete opposite culture and in-house culture, family culture. Even though my mom was very accepting of everybody, but when it came to God, that's where, and she still to this day is like that. That's where the line in the sand kind of was. So anyway, fast forward a few more years. I'm in a Catholic school still at this point. I went to St. Raphael Academy in Pawtucket. I was struggling so bad to make friends, to pass class. That was probably the most lost I ever felt in my life, which was crazy because I remember I graduated from middle school with high honors, the highest honors actually from St. Anne's. And I took a sense of, I know pride can be destructive, but I took kind of pride in that, because that was the one thing I was really good at, was like, was studying and passing tests and doing papers and things like that. And in high school, the whole like social experiment of the 90s was already like probably taken over and destroying people and putting the ego in the forefront, and everyone in high school just protecting their ego so bad that it's like we were all at war with each other. Like, it's strange. So we try to find the people closest that we fit with, and I ended up with the Marilyn Manson group and the DSI death metal group and like the Mayhem black metal guys. And I still believed in God, but I was starting to listen to that music because it was so welcoming. And there's a lot of good people that play that style of music, a lot of good friends, a lot of good people, a lot of genuine individuals. So I'm not trying to bash that whole realm of musicianship and artists. But I remember I was going for my confirmation, part of the Catholic process in like adult and acceptance of the faith. And I remember the priest came in with a satanic Bible, a Ouija board, and a bunch of stories from Rocky Point, Satanists at Rocky Point in Warwick, Rhode Island, and all these different stories, like dark satanic stories, and none of us were. I think it had a reverse effect. He was trying to scare us away from those things and show us like what's out there.
It created more intrigue.
Yeah, I remember leaving and wanting to know everything about that book. I remember it was so shocking and so interesting, the LaVey and Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, and boards and all that, Ouija boards and tarot cards, and like it hit me at a vulnerable part of my teenage years, and it drew me right in. I was already watching horror movies. I was already surrounded by the music. I already had the slightly antisocial behavior. And then it was a community that I excelled in, because then I started playing drums, and being able to play really fast drums in that genre is pretty rare around these parts. So people wanted to make bands, have me join bands, and then all of a sudden I had all this like negative attention, or like attention I shouldn't have had, because it dominated the attention that I wasn't getting at home and in other healthier aspects of my life. So it sucked me right in. And I remember shedding my beliefs slowly at first, just not wanting to ever go to church again, but still believing in God. Still having some Ten Commandments poster on my wall, but my friends would come over and make fun of it, rip it down. But still believed in God. Started buying band t-shirts that were all satanic, but still kind of believed in God. Then it got to the point where I was like, why am I even believing in God? Like, I went full throttle into the occult and everything else that came with that territory. So, but I always was a conspiracy, like, I hate using the term, everybody says it's, the CIA created the term to discredit people, but there's really nothing else I can grab at, but I've always had this mindset to want to know what's the man behind the curtain. I don't know if it was because The Wizard of Oz is my favorite movie as a child, and wanting to see what really, running Emerald City.
Yeah.
This big, extravagant, definitely narcissistic environment, and then it's just a little coward behind it all, like a puppet master. And that's like the archetype of society. And I remember, like, I would meet people, and most of them ended up turning into a lot of, like, later on, and I'm not trying to say it in a derogatory way, but a lot of the people I thought were friends would reject my, like, politics. Every now and then I would say, well, you ever see this documentary on 9/11? Or you ever think about, like, MK Ultra, or Operation Artichoke, or Mockingbird? And when I would say that stuff, they would think I'm crazy. Yep. And they loved government so much at the same time while wanting to rebel against it. So I knew they were, like, controlled and manipulated, because I fit in with them as far as the arts are concerned. But when it came to actual, like, thinking deeply about what is life and what are we involved with, they were so closed-minded, and they think that they're extremely open-minded. But I remember, like, at the time, what was it? When Anonymous was protesting with against Wall Street. What was it called?
Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street. Okay. Yeah. So what was that, like 2009 era kind of?
Yeah, like 2009, 2010, I think. Yeah. Yep.
My cousin Dan Badandi was already getting pretty big with investigating, but he was a Christian, so we split I would
Right.
talk about conspiracies or solving riddles, government riddles. But when it came to God, we would part ways.
Right.
And then he started working for InfoWars shortly after. And I was already listening to InfoWars since 9/11 with Bill
Yep.
Cooper in high school. I
Oh
discovered
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So
Wait,
I
damn, Bill Cooper way back in the day, man. That's how I started got in drawing for that too. Yeah.
with the Behold the Pale Horse and
Yeah.
everything.
I have the book. Yep.
You know what's crazy? That's like the greatest gem that floats around in federal prison. You will always find a copy of Behold the Pale Horse.
Interesting. That's that. Wow.
There's a lot
So
of
that's
deep
cool.
thinking there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and if I'm going on too long, just let me know.
No, you're good. You're good. This is, I want people to have a build of a background to, leading up to what had happened. You know what I mean? So
No, what's crazy is me having the that counterculture, me being a part of that counterculture, rebellious, arts and music. That was completely socially like acceptable midway, not in the beginning. It wasn't acceptable in the beginning. Now the people that would reject it in the beginning are totally all about that now. Like they're the actual Satanists now. Like people that don't care, totally reject God and worship idolatry. They idolize everything. Like the same person in 2005 that would say I'm a weirdo for wearing a band T-shirt and dressing all in black now is like 60 years old wearing all black and rejecting God and like bragging about how many abortions that children are having.
right.
And it's crazy because it's like it didn't dawn on me until the libertarian movement, till I really got big into Ron Paul and that whole thing that that I was involved. I was like behind enemy lines, being in the arts and in that culture, but knowing that there is something corrupt pulling the strings. It was like I got a chance to see what's going on behind enemy lines.
It was like you were on the razor's edge of the double sword. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
a double-edged sword. Yeah.
yeah. It's crazy, and I couldn't see it at the time because I was like, why does people not like get it? Why don't they get what I'm saying? Am I really a weirdo for thinking like that
Man.
9/11 could be strange, or am I watching documentaries that? And now the documentaries are totally mainstream, like
Yep.
more than ever. So I don't know. So I didn't fit in with people then. I didn't fit in with people. I don't fit in with people much now. I mean, I fit in very well with the same people that have rose above and are trying to overcome the fallen state and want to be good, genuine individuals. And yeah, so let's pick up around that 2009 era, 2010 era. So that's when I was like at the peak of rebellion, and definitely not I was a pretty hardcore atheist. And I mean, I was dabbling in the occult because that was literally all over the place. And now it's like an incredibly big mainstream, uh, like it's all over the place. It's like it's taken over the media. Like all the things that I was interested in then are now literally mainstream and being pushed onto everybody. So it's like it's hard to dissect.
I feel like during even Occupy Wall Street, the element of the occult was even within that movement in some form in a weird way. Because when I saw the protest out here in Providence, and they began to be some pretty, not as big as New York, or LA, I think, LA and New York, but there were elements of it. But at the same time, like what you were saying is that the whole people from that, there were a lot of people that understood the whole 9/11 stuff, although there were some back and forth with that too, like the whole conspiracy stuff about it. I know it's a dirty word, but a lot of us use that now as a badge of honor these days.
Right.
So it's weird that part was there. It's almost like to deter people, like, yeah, all these bad things are going on, but just don't ignore the God guy. You know what I'm saying? Ignore that person because or that being because just pay attention to what's going on down here. And even with that though, that still people I feel like would be completely led astray regardless of the fact of the information that they were able to uncover. And I mean, I experienced the same thing to that or similar to that effect. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like going to Rock and Shock, the convention in Worcester, Mass, like around that era, and seeing during Occupy Wall Street, seeing people protesting at a city hall. I think it was City Hall in Worcester, and I was like, oh wow, this is awesome. People are waking up. Little did I know that they were really just protesting against capitalism.
Yeah. Right.
And I think.
Right.
But a lot of those people ended up coming to the right side, and they were just realizing there's corruption everywhere, so they were part of the movement. But then there's a lot of those that I can remember that ended up going hardcore, like Antifa, wanting actual socialist communism and stuff.
I really think that's where a lot of that stuff started to stem off of, because in the beginning, the Occupy Wall Street stuff, when you got Anonymous out there with the whole Guy Fawkes masks and all that stuff, like that movement, I was like, this is it right here, because they started occupying federal buildings, not just not just outside on the streets, just in front of like New York. There's some famous places that they were at. I think it was like the World Trade Center or right around where the World Trade Center was, and
all the way to the bridge. I remember it was like it stretched pretty far.
Like they were occupying banks and stuff. I'm like, okay, now people are like, their radar is like right there. But then it's like you said, it's like, okay, it seems as though that they were just targeting only capitalism, not like end the Fed. And there were a lot of people out there, don't get me wrong, there were a lot of people out there that were saying like with signs like end the Fed, investigate 9/11, all of that stuff, that's like top tier stuff. But it didn't get as much of a wave as the media was just paying attention, like, oh, look at all these people who don't work, protesting and sitting on the streets. And meanwhile, by the way, the police made themselves, like, they exposed themselves in such a horrible way because they were just beating these people. I remember seeing pepper spray, pepper balls, all of that stuff when you're watching these videos, and these kids, I say kids now, but at the time they were, I guess, in their early 20s or something, somewhere around there. And they're just sitting down. They're not, they're nonviolent. They're not even in the way, and they're just being beaten back. So, and we've seen that progressive, that progressed throughout history too, like up until now. But during that time, it was like really weird. You're seeing these police beat these people in the legs with batons, and they're literally just protesting. They're not doing anything violent. So, it tells us where our country was already leading towards even then. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember like the whole Vermin Supreme, like all the, you remember the guy, I think he's from up in New Hampshire, Vermin Supreme, like a lot of like comic relief, political activists and stuff like that. It was like a lot of people were waking up, but it was like a fire. It was like a fire. It was like there was an explosion of new thought patterns, and the government or the deep state had to come in and just bring them all back, feed us half truths, and then pit us against each other. And it was a perfect opportunity for the government. I keep saying government, but really for the deep state to just come along and militarize these people into like against God, really, and against each other, against man. I mean, there's just so many things wrong with it, but it was an interesting time. And then you had crazy stuff going on, like Sandy Hook and then Second Amendment rights being taken away. And so it was just like, it was a time in our history where it was a perfect power grab. I mean, 9/11 was a perfect power grab. I know David Icke is an atheist, or no, he's not really an atheist. He says he believes in God, but really he doesn't believe in Yahweh, but he worships man still. So, but I still like to read some of his material, and he he calls it the totalitarian tiptoe.
Mm.
And it really is that. And he also says there's a perfect formula that they follow, and it's problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem, they create and stir the reaction with the propaganda, and then they come in with a solution. And the solution was really what they wanted us to do to begin with, but we wouldn't do it until the problem existed. So problem, reaction, solution. That's their formula. And the totalitarian tiptoe, because the solution is always one step closer to what they want for total global governance, which is all Babylonian, which has never changed. It's still Babylon wanting a one world government, Babylon wanting a one world currency, Babylon wanting a one world language, a one world means of communication and control. And I couldn't see all that because I was still atheist back then. And Dan, my cousin Dan, I got to give him a lot of credit. He saw it back then, and he took a lot of verbal abuse from people and ridicule. I mean, they tar and feathered him like crazy, and ultimately that's what happened to me after the situation. But at that time, the reason I'm kind of focusing on that again is because I'm going to get to the point of where I explain how I had become wealthy with cryptocurrency, and why and how and why I even looked into cryptocurrency, while also around that era going to see Ron Paul at URI, a lot of Ron Paul events with End the Fed and looking into the banking system. So once I realized that, they always say money, it's all about money, it's all about control, but what is it about money and control? How does it work? And then when you see that the Federal Reserve isn't an American entity, they loan us the money. The gold and silver is gone because of Woodrow Wilson with the Federal Reserve Act, and the Depression, and how they monopolized the banks and everything else, with basically loan scams in the early 1900s, or bad language and ignorant people taking loans and then defaulting and collapsing the entire country. Basically, I wanted to know, I saw how many people were, it's like Occupy Wall Street was going after the top 1%. And I wanted to know, how did they even get to that 1%? And what is it about capitalism? Or what is it about this message that they were protesting against? And I realized capitalism is inherently good. But people cheat to win. So they monopolize the token system that we use as for financial exchange here in the world and in this country. When the founding fathers wanted decentralized currency, they always said that every state or every district should have its own means of trade and currency, free market. And I didn't know that. So I remember I was at a bar in Providence with my band at the time, playing around 2008, 2009. And I remember this guy who was from like a noise band. His name used to be Chaos Character, or that's what he went by. I never saw him again. Actually, it was the last time I saw him. And I remember we were talking about how the government wants to get rid of cash and go cashless, go into a cashless society with a digital currency, not a cryptocurrency, but a digital asset like China, where it's not actually backed by anything.
Yep.
And it's still centralized. And he was talking to me and a couple other friends. He was like, there is already a digital currency. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, it's called Bitcoin. And I had never heard about it. I didn't know anything about it. I remember going home and looking it up and seeing that, yes, you can buy Bitcoin. And it was like a couple cents. And I just thought it was a scam.
I know. I missed my mark on that.
Crazy, right? I really thought it was a scam. I thought it was, being paranoid already back then. I was like, this is like a government rug pull. Like, this is the government setting people up to buy, because of Silk Road and everything else that was around at that time.
Yep.
A way to catch people and throw them in jail for buying pot or drugs at the time.
That was a deterrent for me. Sorry to cut you off. That was a deterrent for me at the time too. I looked into it and I said, this looks pretty interesting. I didn't even talk to my family about it at the time. I think it was like around 2010, 2011 when I saw it. I think it was still at like 20 cents still. Hadn't blown up completely yet. But yeah, you'd get sources out there like, oh, these lawyers and all this stuff, like, oh, this is you're gonna get federally, basically fucked over if you do this. Yeah, that was a deterrent for me at the time. I regret not. I regret not putting at least $100 in there that I didn't even have at the time. But I'd be probably a millionaire by now.
Sometimes I wonder if I did buy some and forgot about it and didn't think much about it, because I remember going on the sites and looking around, and so I didn't go with that. I knew I wanted to become wealthy and be able to provide. For my at the time I just had a few years later, I had my first son, and I knew I wanted to provide for him. So I was sick of like working part-time jobs, working at the college, the IT department at the time, and just not having money and wanting to be able to enjoy life like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember going into stocks. I was like, well, I'll go into stocks. So I went into Facebook and I bought like $4,000 worth at like the moment the offering came out. It was $32 or $33 this year, and it plummeted to $14 within like I think a few hours. And I was like, oh my god, because that was like $3,000, $4,000 to me back then, was like life changing.
Yeah, right.
And it dumped by half, and I was like panicking. I was like, oh man, I held on to it for like a year, and then I sold, and there was so many lawsuits involved. And didn't think much of it. Got into gold and silver, didn't go anywhere. And then I remember looking online and seeing Bitcoin on the news at like $100 or $60 or $120. And I was like, what? So I started following it, but I still didn't get into it. 2016 happens. I look at it again. It's like, it's going up there now. It's a couple $100. So 2017... 2018 era, right before the pandemic, somebody tips me off on XRP Ripple. So I heard about Bitcoin. I still didn't know what it really was. I thought it was a centralized digital currency. So I said, let me make an account on Bitstamp. That was the only option at the time that I could find. I mean, there was definitely no Kraken or any of these huge exchanges. It was literally nothing. It was still the Wild West.
Yeah.
I found one called Bitstamp, and then I found another one in China called Binance, which later they ended up kicking the Americans off, and then they split, and then they became Binance US, and I was like, oh shoot. But I buy some XRP Ripple at 2 cents. I bought $200 worth. It pumped to 8 cents very quickly. I turned $200 into $800. I said, oh man, I didn't have a chance with stocks. I even tried cannabis stocks. None of it worked. It just didn't go anywhere. But I'm doing really quick, making it really quick with this crypto. Then I took that 800. I bought Litecoin at like $12 a token. It pumped all the way up to $120. But I'm kind of forgetting the numbers, but it was around there. And I made a couple grand. I made like $4,400 really quick.
Nice.
And I remember my wife thinking that I wasn't telling the truth and that I was just chasing it with like my taxes and paychecks. And she looked at it and she said, oh no, oh my God, it really is true. You really did make this profit from nothing. So I took that, and then I bought 30,000 Chainlink tokens, and I bought them at 16 cents a piece. So it was around that $4,400, maybe 46 with fees and taxes, fees and whatever the exchange charges. And I knew that Chainlink was gonna. So at that point, I started teaching myself what blockchain was and decentralization of currency, and it still was the Wild West. There weren't any books, there weren't any websites or documentaries. It was very limited. There were maybe a handful, and definitely no customer service. Um, and it would. I mean, I lost tons of times. I lost $100 here and there because like you'd have to like manually type in crypto addresses in, which is like a totally long string of letters and numbers. You know that.
Yep.
And I remember it pumped to 30 cents, and I was pretty excited. I had doubled my money, and I'm like, wow! I basically just made $8 grand out of nothing over the course of like half a year or whatever it was. I said, I'm gonna hold this though. I see a lot of news. I think Chainlink it links blockchain technology. It links chains of the blockchain, and it just had a phenomenal technology that was unique at the time that I really thought was beneficial to the blockchain, to blockchain technology. So it pumps to 50 cents and then $1. And I had the most money I ever had in my life. It was $30,000 all at once. And I was like, wow, I think I may have just bought my ticket. I had 30,000 tokens and one full Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin I paid a couple grand for. I bought that with my tax return that year. And I said, I have this ticket, my Bitcoin. Everyone's saying it's going all the way to $1 million. And someday everyone will only have sats, like a few sats, Satoshis, or fragments of a Bitcoin, basically. I'll either make it with this or I'm going to make it with these 30,000 Chainlink tokens. And Chainlink started making partnerships with all the evil companies in the world. So Oracle, Alphabet, everything you can imagine. And I was like, this is going to be the token. I mean, Google was talking about it in a time when no one was accepting any crypto because it was nothing but years worth of propaganda telling you, do not buy crypto. It is a scam. JP Morgan, I mean, all these companies, right? Meanwhile, they had the largest wallets filled with crypto. They were accumulating, you know?
That's actually what made me start to get involved in some of the, some smaller transactions with Bitcoin, or not just Bitcoin alone, but other types, other cryptocurrencies, because I started seeing like, oh, you got JP Morgan, you even got George Soros buying into these things. You have Bank of America, you have Santander Bank, you have the Federal Reserve buying into cryptocurrency. So I'm like, all right, so they're saying it's bad, but why are their wallets in it? So that's when I was like, I'm gonna just start taking a little bit of risk. I didn't, I really wish I took a lot more ballsy risks that you did. I don't know, maybe it was just I mean, at the end of it, I probably made a measly $4,000, given that time frame during the pandemic and stuff, which really helped, actually, not for nothing, because I mean, a lot of stuff was going on at the time. But yeah, man, like the evil media was really not trying to deter people from setting themselves up to become financially free. And
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Even Alex Jones was skeptical. I mean,
it's understandable. I was skeptical because of the fact, like, it's a brand new. I didn't understand it, like you said. There was never any manuals about it. No, there was no books. There were some people that were like, I guess, coming off as they understood it and all that stuff. But there were like the questions that you wanted to ask. There never was a real solid answer to it. So it's like you're kind of like a, you're a duck in an ocean, basically. Like there's no way. It's either basically what it came down to is like you either risk this $100, and if you're okay if losing it, then it's kind of like a gamble, and that's kind of like the mindset that I put it on. I was like, all right, if I gamble it, it's $100, $50, $30. If I lose it, I lose it. You know what I'm saying? I'm okay. I'm not gonna be happy about it, but I'll be all right. But yeah, it came down to that, dude, and it's crazy of how it evolved now.
I remember I had felt like I had discovered like the ultimate like end all solution, because If you go on my Facebook wall and you scroll all the way down, it take a long time, but you get to that era, 2018, 19, and you start looking at my posts, you'll see that I was so desperately wanting everyone to follow me in with this because I knew I discovered something that could get us all financial freedom. And I was posting it and posting it and posting it and posting it, saying, look, just copy exactly what I'm doing. I would literally go to the gas station across my mother's house and show the guy on my cell phone, look, this is literally my account. Yes, I do have 30 grand in there at the time, but you don't need 30 grand. I'm telling you, if you just invest in this a tiny bit and just follow what I'm doing, we're all going to make it. And of course, there were waves. Like it took ultimately it took about 4 or 5 years. There were tons of ups and downs. And I sold Chainlink at around $40 a token. So I made 1.2 and I made 200 grand on Ethereum and other stuff, right?
Wow.
So that's where now we're getting to the point where the story gets kind of crazy and interesting.
Right.
So I kind of painted the whole picture of my life, and anything else that I didn't really mention, it was just basically normal stuff that every other human being goes through growing up or getting through this life. But
Yep.
long story short, I hit it. I remember sitting at work. I was teaching at Central High School for I was a substitute, and then I was a long-term placement at Central High School. That was my last spot. And I remember that's when I was really just hoping that I make it with this crypto. I started going for my master's around, that was my other like plan B or C or D at this point to make it, to be able to provide for my family. I was in my master's in social work program at Rhode Island College, in the MSW program at Rhode Island College, and I was basically incognito because it was nothing but indoctrination related to propaganda, pro-abortion, just all the hot topics. That's all it was. I won't even get into it because I'm still trying to appeal to be able to get back to finish. They're not going to let me in. They banned me, basically permanently banned me for life because of what happened, even though I did nothing there or anything that would cause anyone any damage.
Banned you to teach or to learn or to go back to college, or is that what you mean?
Technically both. I could never teach again because I would never be able to pass a background check for the rest of my life. But also, I've been permanently banned from Rhode Island College. I was a dual diagnosis class, part 2, one class which is like studying the DSM and being able to diagnose people with certain different mental illness and all that. So I was one class away there, and I was one internship away from what I now am in debt pretty bad. So all the money's gone, everything's gone. But I'm 80 grand in debt for my student loan that I definitely cannot pay off, and they won't let me finish. And if I try to transfer anywhere else, they only will transfer like 15%, 20% of the credit. So it's like starting over again. Yeah, they banned me immediately before I even pled guilty. Like the day of the news article, because it involved firearms, they immediately sent a no trespass order to my house.
Wow.
And yep, I never harmed anyone with a firearm. I never would harm anyone with a firearm. I never threatened anyone with a firearm. In fact, I was always the firearm enthusiast that would wish that I can be the hero someday and, stop somebody somewhere from getting hurt. Right. That way you can see that guns can be beneficial and not just a dangerous assault weapon that they always say, or a dangerous weapon in general. It's a tool like anything else in life. That's dramatically changed the course of life and history for beneficial reasons and for dark reasons. Basically, when I hit that money, I was a part of the Second Amendment Coalition with my cousin Dan Bidandi, and I ran for state representative in 2018. And I wanted, when Trump came in for his first term, it like really, got everybody to riled us up and rallied us up to, want to get together and band together to really bring the country back to the whole Constitution, which is intrinsically contains like the Ten Commandments, like the Torah. Like, the Constitution is supposed to be reflective of the Torah and Ten Commandments. So I was loving it. It was like, wow, we may have a movement here that actually means something, that actually can actually undo all of the injustices in society and actually give us real freedom and release from control, and allowing us to be able to embrace and enjoy life and actually experience liberty. And I ran for state representative in 2018. I lost, but I still gave it a good shot. Had fun with it. Was a part of the Second Amendment Coalition, the first town we came to Burrillville, and we wanted to help Burrillville convert to sanctuary gun status, sanctuary city for firearms, so that way to get around the draconian, barbaric, like communist influenced laws that are passing to dismantle and destroy our civil liberties. We said, well, if we can start on a small grassroots level of just getting the local town councilmen and state reps and chiefs and captains of the police departments and everything else, and we get them on our side, and get them to promise at town hall meetings not to pass or enforce, I should say, enforce unconstitutional laws, even if the state passed them. Maybe we can try to rise up and have our voice be heard in a peaceful way, in a state that's dominated by one political party.
I want to emphasize on that too. It's very important that you said that. Police officers do not have to enforce unconstitutional laws.
Right.
At all. Like, that's very important that people understand that, and that the local law enforcement understand that as well. When these lawmakers, when they make those unconstitutional laws that critically violate any of the constitutional rights, that the civil rights that a free man or woman has, you do not have to enforce those. The state tells you to enforce them, but you do not have to enforce those. So I was also, not to go off here, I want you to continue on, but very briefly here is that I was watching the guy that was part of taking down Pablo Escobar, and he was talking about back in the day, police officers could use their so-called discretion on whether or not they want to enforce a particular law or a particular violation or whatever the case may be. If they can find out right then and there that the violation that the person is not has not committed a violation, or there's no immediate threat or whatever, then they say, okay, we document, and then they move on, and then everyone goes home. Now the state actually, I don't know if they require, but they definitely they put the pressure onto these local law enforcement officers from the chief down, saying like, look, these laws are passed. This is what you got to do. This is your protocol. You got to do it. At the end of the day, constitutionally, law enforcement has to abide by the Constitution. They swore the oath to it. If you're swearing the oath to it, it's legally binding. So, and not to mention, it's publicly binding too. So the public is entrusting the local law enforcement to obey specifically the Constitution. Now, lawmakers can make laws. They can make laws all they want. Policies, as long as it does not violate the Constitution, it's fine. But if it violates the Constitution, it violates the civil rights and the civil liberties of a free man, free woman, then it's null and void, and the police officers are obligated, actually, to abide by that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just wanted to add and emphasize on that point.
No, and we should research this a little further, because this is a concept that I thought about. Like, I'm pretty sure we were supposed to really only rely on voted in sheriffs that had
that's another issue too.
the sole purpose was to make sure the governor and those in positions of power do not violate the Constitution. And
Yes.
they can deputize citizens that would work under them to also enforce this position of making sure no one's civil liberties are violated. But instead, we now have sheriffs that are not voted in and that the
Yep.
governor picks and puts into power, which is crazy because that's goes against the concept altogether.
Yeah.
And
That's a
then we have
conflict of interest. Yeah.
a bunch of contracted police officers that are not really working for the Constitution at all.
Mhm.
Instead, they're trying to generate an income for the town with violations, financial violations, like
Yeah.
tickets.
It's under my understanding too that I believe that deputized sheriffs, deputized deputies are the civilian end of making sure that law enforcement is not violating civil rights, the Constitution, all of that. It's from my understanding. Now there are some towns out there in America. I don't know if Rhode Island. Yeah, Rhode Island does not have any of that. From my understanding, we don't have sheriffs.
I think
That's
we
a
have
concern.
sheriffs that are voted in.
Right. Yeah, and you don't hear about it
Right.
because of these reasons. So I from my understanding, but yeah, I agree. I think we should research that. We don't have to go into it right now, but you and I, we can talk about this after, and I'd be willing to research that and get that out to the public's eye. I think the public needs to know about that.
Yeah, because it's not like I'm not siding with Antifa or any of these groups that are saying,
Correct. Yeah.
like defund and all this other stuff. Of course, we don't want crime-ridden, because they're saying
Right.
to like get rid of the eyes in the places where we actually need laws to be enforced, because we need laws to be enforced that protect other people's civil liberties.
Correct. Yes.
We don't need laws to be enforced to like punish every movement because it's involved in interstate commerce or whatever. However, the federal government wants to get around the fact that the federal government really only has the rights to punish 3 types of crime: crimes of the high seas, uh, forgeries of currency,
Mm-hmm.
and treason. Those are the only 3 types of charges that the federal government was tasked with punishing. And now the federal government is superseding the state in every way, shape, and form, and is picking up all the state level cases.
Yep.
And
They really don't have any jurisdiction on the state. That's what a lot of people don't understand too. They literally don't have any jurisdiction. They could make all of the, like, for instance, marijuana.
right,
Well, marijuana, in a sense, just to put it out there, it's a man has a right to do whatever he wants to do as long as it does not harm anybody else, as long as it doesn't impede on anybody else, as long as it doesn't violate anybody else. If you want to smoke weed, if you want to do whatever, you should be able to do it. I'm not saying you should do all the other ABC whatever elements out there, but what I'm saying is you should be able to do it without any repercussions for it. You're not harming anybody.
amen.
And the federal government or the police or the state should not have anything to do with that. Saying that, it shouldn't violate anybody else's rights. It shouldn't harm or endanger anybody else, and all that stuff. I mean, that's all self-explanatory. That's all, a normal person that walks out of his door or his or her door doesn't plan on harming somebody else, doesn't intend to harm anybody else, and doesn't actually go and harm anybody else. They just go about their day and whatever they want to do. If they want to smoke a little bit of weed, I mean, whatever. The federal government should not have any jurisdiction, and they don't have any jurisdiction. Legally speaking, they don't have any jurisdiction. But like you said, over time, the infiltration and say, oh, we're all the same. Federal and state say they're all the same. The only reason why, actually, or one of the reasons why, I don't think the reason why, is money. The federal government says, oh, we'll give you all the money you want. You just got to do what we say. Talking to the, state representatives, governor, so on and so forth. You do what we say. And that's how you get corrupt people to fall in line with the federal government or even the state being corrupt themselves, right down to councilmen and freaking school teachers, whatever it is, or police officers rather, to make my point more, valid. And that's kind of like where all that comes from. It all comes down from the lobbying. I don't even like lobbying. I think lobbying should never even exist. I think it should be illegal. I think it's a conflict of interest. And yeah, I get it. Like if you want funding and for someone that wants that wants to do the right thing and all that stuff, there's so many things to unpack on that. I don't want to derail where we're going with it. I just want to emphasize on that point. But there's so many things where lobbying and making and even writing arbitrary laws that are significantly anti-constitutional, that should be treasonous according to federal government. That's just my opinion on that. I don't know, the inner workings of where the language lies on what treason is and isn't. But I do think that bills that are being made, legislations and all that stuff, I really do think that those are applicable to being apprehendable and even charged and even being completely removed from office permanently because of, you're affecting not just a person's life, you're affecting person's life, you're affecting the state's life, you're affecting the nation's lives for making these ridiculous laws and, pulling people over for a light out, that I've never understood that. Okay. A light's out. Yeah. All right. Pull them over and tell them, hey, your light's out, get it fixed, and then move on. You shouldn't be able to ticket that person, and you shouldn't be able to fish either for anything else. You pull them over for a light, you pull them whatever, and that should be it. In my opinion, an officer that does that should be removed or retrained or somehow. And if the violation and if they go beyond that, a violation where the person is harmed because of a headlight out, I think that violation should be put onto the officer, and that officer should be apprehended for it, all the way up to the chain. I mean, if I were governor.
Absolutely. And I agree 100%. It's crazy because it's like they've managed to turn everything into probable cause.
Yep.
So, and now literally they could say they can base the entire interaction or the purpose for the interaction off of probable cause that, with just from visual things, they thought they saw you, this vest might look like a seatbelt, and because it's going vertical and not diagonal, they could say, oh, I only saw a portion of it, and it looks like your seatbelt wasn't on, so there's probable cause to pull you over. And then you're in a bad mood, they're in a bad mood, it turns into a weird standoff situation, and then someone ends up getting hurt and thrown in jail or whatever. And that's a police state. That's the definition of a police state, really. Mm-hmm. And that means you have zero freedom of speech. You have zero Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. You have no rights. And basically, I was getting to go back to the my political involvement stuff and what led to me losing all of my rights. I bought my house in Barville. I told my wife, you pick the house so long as there's acreage so I can have my own gun range. I had firearms forever, almost my entire adult life, and never did anything wrong with them ever. Never used them in any capacity for anything illegal or mischievous or with ill intent. I never ever thought to even take my guns out of my house to do anything bad with them. I would never want to lose my rights or anything. I just wouldn't want to hurt anybody either. I'm not that kind of person. They got the wrong guy with that one. And long story short, I basically got arrested. So I buy the house. The police keep showing up to my house. Neighbors are complaining about the volume of the firearms but I was within ordinance. So I was shooting half hour before sundown, half hour after sunrise. That's the Barville ordinance. I was following it to a T. I didn't break any laws, didn't do anything crazy, didn't threaten anyone, didn't hurt anyone. I have 11 acres of land. That's the one thing they couldn't take away from me was my house and my property. Unfortunately, I owe a major bill against it, because I lost everything, literally everything. I took every cent and dumped it into cryptocurrency, dumped it into guns and ammunition. That every dollar that did not go into the house went into my FFL application and guns and ammunition and other outdoors sports related things. My intention was to open my own gun store during the pandemic, all that we ever heard of, were that there was ammo shortages, gun shortages. You should prep, you should do this, you should do that. I was trying to build the ultimate like prepper's paradise. Everything was legal. And like I said, the police kept showing up. I showed them my land. I said, you can look at my range. Everything is legitimate. They encouraged me to keep shooting on my range. And some of them were people that we knew from the Second Amendment Coalition. No problem whatsoever. In my docket, it is stated that they were already investigating me before any of this. They were all, in quotations, there was already an ongoing, while another ongoing investigation was collecting steam or heat, or however they worded it. They stated that they were watching me because of my anti-vaccine posts, my political posts in social media, running for state rep, being at the State House for everything, for the anti-abortion stuff with Chris Young, who died in the car accident, the guy that was like pretty much running all of the anti-abortion stuff here in the state. I was very loud and and proud, really, with rights and civil liberties. And of course, my cousin Dan Badandi was being followed because of his involvement with trying to expose everything that was the fallout from the Sandy Hook situation with Alex Jones and, whether it had, all the conspiracies around Sandy Hook, it's like the only one you couldn't talk about ever, no matter what. And it's the only one where it like instantly allowed for states to strip the Second Amendment, destroy it. They were watching me, and I thought that there was nothing they could ever get me on because I didn't know that taking my prescription, I had a prescription for Adderall. I didn't know that finishing it, or taking any amount, or whatever. They said I was abusing the Adderall, but I had a prescription for it. So they said that I was basically doing a month's worth of the prescription in a week or two. And that was enough for them to say that I lied on my background checks. The question, I think it's question 24, 25, or 26. It's the question that says, are you an unlawful user of substances? So they said that I lied on a federal form. So I was charged with lying on federal documents, causing the government to hold fraudulent documents, causing the ATF to hold fraudulent documents, and for the 922 G3, which is what they say is a prohibited person in possession of a firearm. So although all the firearms were purchased legally, they were never used in a crime. They were all exclusively for sport and recreation, as the judge even said and stated to the prosecutor that after asking the prosecutor multiple times, were the firearms used for anything malicious? Absolutely not, Your Honor. But this gentleman is addicted to substances, and he lied on his background checks. The judge again said, so were the guns used for anything malicious? They said no. And then the judge said, so they were used for sports and recreation then? And they said yes. However, Your Honor, he has a substance abuse problem. So rather than send me to rehab or put me on probation like they did for Chum Lee from the show Pawn Stars, who was actually selling cocaine and firearms, I wasn't selling drugs.
And also, from my understanding, has allegations of pedophilia also, from my understanding, too.
Yeah. gets probation and the diversion program, gets his guns right back.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
And Hunter Biden, at the exact same time, was charged with the same crime as I. And I felt like there were more articles about me than there were him. And it was crazy because it was all over Yahoo News and CNN and Fox and MSN. And the Boston Globe kept tar and feathering me over and over and over and over to the point where I felt like my life was permanently destroyed. I could never get out.
I have we don't have to play it, but I did watch the clip from Target 12, and the way that the description of you plays is that it's almost like, oh, this guy was like preparing and planning to do some type of massacre of some sort, right?
Yep.
Never once. I don't even think I'm pretty sure in this video, never once mentioning anything about Adderall, anything about. Actually, if I remember correctly, it sounded like how they put it that you were. It almost made it seem like you were distributing rather than having a personal, whatever, substance abuse from whatever they accused you for. My question, though, too, I wanted to ask you before we go further. When you're filling out that form, also this should be a red flag for everybody because this is how they are tracking what you fill out. But in that form, it said how did you word it, that were you in possession of were you unlawfully in possession of an unlawful substance? Did you happen to have a?
It doesn't even ask if you have the substance. It's so broad and bizarre that it says, "Are you an unlawful user of substances?"
That's what I'm saying. Like how? So, are you an unlawful user of the substance? How? Yeah, that's very broad.
And it's a violation of
anybody that doesn't have a criminal record would be like, no, I'm not. I can fucking, I can possess whatever I want, basically. You know what I mean?
And if you were to say yes, you would be admitting to a crime that you may or may not have even committed, and it's a true violation of your rights.
But if you had, now I'm going to ask you probably a question. You can either answer it or don't. But if you had Adderall, you obviously had a medical. Like you were medically given this, yes or no?
Yes, I had.
Okay, so why? Oh wow, that's bizarre. That's very bizarre, dude.
I had a prescription for like the 25 or 30 milligram, I forget, and then a prescription for like the 15 milligram.
So how did they come up with you being unlawful in unlawful possession?
There was also some. Yeah, it's crazy. They were following me for the longest time, and whether for even as far as addiction issues, I've overcome all of it. I don't take anything. I get drug tested. I'm in counseling, all kinds of stuff. I found a really good Christian counselor who's totally not into the DSM, or is for a little bit, but he's not like a militant, like secular, anti-God. He's really cool, actually. And I follow everything to a T. I'm on probation in the state and the feds because they had no proof that the substances were ever in my body. So basically, my lawyer said, we're going to go to trial. And they have like a 97 or 98% prosecution rate going against the Fed. So almost everyone just takes a plea deal because you will get fried. You get the absolute. So when you go to trial and lose, it's common practice that the judge gives you the maximum sentence because you wasted the state and government's money. So they say you wasted it, but really they make money off of it because there's a whole financial system to how they figure out how much time they should give you, how much money went into the investigation, and how much they'll recoup by getting paid through taxation every day for you to occupy minimum, maximum, or low or camp security. So depending on which security level they designate you, it's like I was in medium and in low, so they were basically getting around $114 a day for me to occupy that make pretend room, like make pretend bed. Like it was just a slab of metal with roaches everywhere. It was like the evilest, most inhumane condition you can imagine. And they maximum profit. They maximize profit by making sure that you don't I mean, they know that there's like everything's itemized and there's a literal ledger to all of it. Like, there's a ledger to them determining how to sentence you, and then there's a ledger as to like how to not spend a cent on your existence at all and to maximize profit. So like the prison industrial complex, which is why they got rid of private prisons on a federal level, because, well, Biden did, because then the feds wouldn't be held to any checks and balances since the feds weren't private, and then they can really crash the system and treat you like a roach and not give a crap. And you can't point out, well, at that prison, they get real food, or in that prison, they have an actual mattress. You're not sleeping on a literal metal autopsy tray. And it's like medical grade autopsy tray is literally what the bed is made out of. It's a flat pan of metal with holes in case you excrete any fluids. So it's like crazy. It's
basically what they put dead bodies on inside of a morgue. Yeah.
It's not a Christian or godly way to treat anybody. I don't care what crime somebody committed after having been in there. And I was surrounded by 80% sex offenders. Like the federal prison is loaded with sex offenders. And I don't even wish what happened to me in there, especially as a Christian, on anyone. Nobody should go through that. I know sin is all demonically influenced, demonic strongholds. I know man can overcome that sinful nature. Even the most heinous rapist, lunatic, I know it makes you angry and it makes you want to throw them in a wood chipper. But at the end of the day, there's a reason, a purpose for their existence. And they actually can, like, the greatest thing in history would be for like Hillary Clinton to come out or George Soros to come out and say, I love you, Jesus. I accept you as the ultimate lamb sacrifice for the fact that I can never, live up to God's expectations. So like that would be like the ultimate miracle, to see the worst person you could imagine in existence admit guilt, become righteous, use discernment, and come to God. So after having been in that environment and seeing how much abuse that I experienced from correctional officers and the system and everything else, I just don't wish anybody to ever go to these prisons. It's just not good. It doesn't rehabilitate you, and you rehabilitate yourself. That environment is so torturous that you either shut down, go into an autopilot mode in your brain, go into total survival, and then it's like, see you later, you check out, and then like 10 years later you wake up again and you're ready to go home. You didn't change. You know what I mean? Unless you found God. Like if you stay on, endure the suffering, and get into scripture, you can literally come out at the most incredible individual that you could have maybe not have been had you not been put into a torture chamber. So I think it's good. It's kind of got its purpose, but I don't think that it's humane, and I don't think it's godly. I mean, even Paul, even God made sure Paul was broken and free from a prison. So
right.
It's just, and
how long were you in there for?
So they sentenced me. I'll never forget. My lawyer he dropped the ball on my case. He kept saying I was going to get probation. I'm going to go home. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then meanwhile, he's friends with the prosecutor and made a lot of mistakes. Like I lost $650,000 of guns and ammunition that was all confiscated, and it was all legally purchased. At first, they had to give it to me to give to my wife, like in a legal quick sale. And they told me they would allow me to do that. And then my lawyer dropped the ball. And he told them, I basically told them I was so they saw that I was so desperate and in fear for my life because I just wanted to be with my kids. Not in fear that someone's going to hurt me in there or anything. I mean, that could have happened, but
Right.
I was more in fear of losing life and an experience with my children and wife that I was so desperate I would do anything, say anything to get out of that. Morally, I would never do anything like rat on anybody. People rat on people to get out early
No,
and stuff.
I understand what you're saying though, man. You were concerned about you were concerned about your family
Yep.
for the most. Yeah. I mean,
And they sentenced me to 5 years, 3 months, and I did 3 years, 8 months because Trump passed the First Step Act, which knocked 12 months off. And yeah, so I had to keep like I'd spent most of my time with January 6ers. They were the closest I can find to my crime. There is nobody else in there that I met with my charge except one other like veteran and who got in trouble for being addicted to tramadol. He was in the military and it was undetectable in his urine. And they destroyed him. They gave him like 10 years.
I
And
don't
because
understand. Oh
Cause
my God.
yeah, and a couple other people I met, but other than that, the closest you can get to like my level of crime was like a January 6er, like a J6er. So, I mean, how am I supposed to become close and friends with this serial killer or murderer or rapist or a hardcore drug dealer? Petty drug dealing, you go to the state. If you're in the feds, you were tied in a serious network. So it's like I'm surrounded by the absolute worst of the worst. Oh, and I was with ICE the entire time. So like almost every building I was in was like ICE detainees. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's so bizarre and hard to explain. But and then Hunter Biden, I kept watching closely. He gets to get out on bail. I was granted bail. They revoked it. Then I was granted bail again and was set to be released so I could at least have a fair chance to fight my case from the outside. And then they said that I had text messages to my wife that I was burying firearms as a prepper. And I could have if I wanted to because it was totally legal. You can bury whatever you want on your property.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, I used to watch that show Preppers. I was like, oh, yeah, if I want to bury 20 of my 300 firearms, I'll bury 20 of them. I'll bury all of them if I wanted at the time.
Right.
And the thing was, because of that text message, which never actually came to fruition and was really more of a joke with my wife, because I was also looking at like prepper underground tunnels when I had that money, like where you can buy like a doomsday shelter.
Nothing illegal about that, by the way. There's nothing illegal about researching that.
So what they did instead was they ended up revoking bail, sending the ATF to my property here, which I'm at right now, and
Yep.
going over it with metal detectors, all 11 acres. And then they still didn't find me because I really genuinely, I said, I'll tell you the truth about everything. I didn't even know that being addicted to my pills was a federal crime. I did not know that. I didn't know that. And I didn't know why I was in federal prison. I always thought the worst that I was committing was a state level misdemeanor of substance abuse.
Yeah.
And the only reason
You
why
didn't,
I was
and you
trying
didn't.
to, yeah, and I was trying to find a rehab, and my wife can attest to this. And I had a prescription ready to help me get off everything. And it's like, because I didn't go to the rehab, if I had gone to the rehab, then like all of their investigation would have been for nothing, and I would have never broke the law.
Right.
But because I didn't go to the rehab, I by default got it caught in a technicality where I was breaking an unconstitutional law, which the Supreme Court just ruled like a month ago in a 9-0 vote that the 922G3, which is what I was charged with and served a prison sentence for, is unconstitutional. And I'll just read something real quick here.
Sure.
In June of this year, the Supreme Court ruled in the United States versus Himani that the federal government's broad automatic application of 18 USC 922 G3 violates the Second Amendment. That statute bans firearm possession by anyone who is an unlawful user of any or addicted to any controlled substance. The court rejected the idea that the government can simply strip someone of their Second Amendment rights the moment they become a regular user of any controlled substance without any individualized showing of danger or addiction in the traditional sense, or that the person was intoxicated while armed. While the specific case that they were looking at was mostly marijuana and everything, the ruling is not limited to marijuana users only. Cannabis users, I should say. It addresses the statute's categorical treatment of unlawful users of controlled substances in general. The decision, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. It marks a significant limit on how far the government can go with a pure status-based ban. And I knew the whole time, I was like, I don't think I ever broke any constitutional law. So there's no way I'm going to stay here in jail or be sent anywhere. That's why when they were making the articles make it sound like I was like some gun-toting extremist, I would laugh because I was like, it's going to backfire in their face. And they said I was on meth. I'd never seen meth in my life. I could swear on a holy Bible, I had never seen meth in my life at that point. You see it in prison. There's all kinds of nonsense in prison that you end up getting exposed to, and I stayed away from it. But it was field tested for amphetamine salts, and then the first thing they did was roll with it to make it sound like I'm some Breaking Bad guy. And then ultimately they stopped posting that in their titles of their articles because they knew it was wrong. And
I just want to, sorry, I don't want to break. I just want to take a quick break here.
Sure.
And I'm going to play like my intro music, and I'll come right back on.
Excellent.
I'm going to take a quick piss break. Sorry.
Losers.
Oops, sorry. Hold on. Let me see if I can get my...
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say it.
Trying to free your mind, it is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to the brink. A lot of us here have calling
I can only show you the door.
to awaken others.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Spreading a message.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing. Every day,
Civilization is weird.
time is coming.
At a
Train
tipping
can't be stopped. Time is already here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say it.
Trying to free your mind, it is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to
This is your
All right. Sorry about that. Just had to take a quick pee break.
No worries.
So, all right. So you were... So yeah, man. I mean, the fact that they violated you on just having even the slightest of substance abuse. You didn't harm anybody. You didn't threaten anybody with any of the firearms that you had. I don't even think the firearms aren't even relevant to that point. And the fact that they involve the ATF to disrupt your family, to get to your property, and use metal detectors on going off of the basis of like whether you should bury your firearms, which you had. I mean, it's not illegal to do that. It's your property. You can do whatever you want with it, and you can do whatever you want with the property that you bought and paid for. The fact that they ransacked you, man, it was like they first of all, if we look at it in this perspective, and most people should probably try and look at it at this perspective, you were one, violated, you were kidnapped for a long time, for an extensive time. You were harassed, your family was disrupted, and then your property was stolen. So they were the state were thieves, and they kidnapped you. Some of the main things, and they just violated your rights, dude. It's like, I don't understand how in the courts. See, I guess I can understand in the court system by understanding that literally every level of the state in the judiciary system and law enforcement is completely corrupt. I can understand that, but from a moral view, from a I guess a righteous, God-fearing man view, is that how does a man who, I mean, whether you had a substance abuse or not, the fact that the broad statement on the forums where it's like, what if you're unlawfully in possession of a substance, what does that mean? What do you mean unlawfully in possession of a substance? Mind you, you had a medical reason to have Adderall in the first place. That right there should have been all right. So okay. So maybe you got a little further than what it should have been. Put the guy in rehab. Give him, don't take his weapons away and don't throw him away for 3.5 years or more, almost 4 years rather, in a prison system, or sentence him for 5 years in a prison system. You're taking him away from his family, his livelihood, and then it changed your whole entire life. I'm pissed off for you, dude. I know you're probably pissed off, but I'm genuinely pissed off about people being you're not a criminal for having a substance abuse. It's rampant everywhere. You know what I'm saying? This just happens. You just so happen to not have it, control your life. God bless. You know what I'm saying? Like praise God for that. But at the same time, even so, I am so sick and tired of the bullying from state-sponsored terrorism. And that's basically what, and look, like we said before earlier in the podcast, or in podcasts that I've even said, I'm not against police. I'm not against, order within the chaos. I just want people to do the right thing all the time, because you're putting people, the state, and whether they know it or not, or whether they realize it or not, and I'm sure some of them do, but some of them have no moral backing to themselves, is that you're quite literally destroying people's lives by putting them away for crimes that they have not. If they haven't, in my personal opinion, and it might even be quite factual, actually, I don't think you didn't commit a crime. Okay, you have a substance abuse. That's a personal thing. You know what I'm saying? Not for nothing. But if the state sees that as an issue, what they should have done, and it looks like that's what some of the options were or could have been, is to send you to a rehab to, get you off, get you right, and get you back on to being, your normal self. There's nothing wrong with that. So why couldn't they go through with that? Why did the judge have to sentence you 5 years into a federal prison, which, you're amongst some of the most dangerous people around there, and you got to be, you got to pretty much prepare for that. You have to mentally prepare for that. You have to structure yourself in order if you confront something like that, and also you're around probably the most disgusting types of people. Not for nothing, I get, I'm all for people can redeem themselves even in the most horrible places. I struggle with that also. I think most people struggle with that, but I do find somewhere in there that even the most lost can be found. And at the end of the day, it's not even my place to judge anyway, but I mean, for you to be in a cage on a slab that's basically made for people who are in a morgue, with roaches, and probably the food's crap, and like you're not getting treated well, probably by the staff or anything like that. Like, I mean, like, how do you do that? I just don't understand how people who have the ability to basically destroy or make someone's life towards the better route, and they just screw this guy. He's got this X amount of weapons and all that stuff, and they look at it like you're going to cause a massacre of some sort, and there's no proof of indication of that. You were only sentenced because you had substance abuse and you happen to have firearms. Let alone they were concerned about the multitude of firearms. It's not illegal to have. You can have 1,000. You can have 1,000,000 firearms. It's not illegal. It's not illegal to bury them in your yard either. If you got land somewhere, you can bury them anywhere you want to. So yeah, man. I mean, they were looking at you like you were like America's most wanted potential terrorist, and like, oh, we got him just because just because over Adderall.
It's crazy.
Man, I'm angry about that, dude.
The roaches that were in my cell would make like that. They were literally bigger than the roaches the fake roaches they sell at Spencer's Gifts.
Like
I never seen
like Florida roaches, oh my god, dude, that's.
And they had me in MDC Brooklyn with all the Mac Bloods and all of that, like where P. Diddy is. And then they sent me to Petersburg. They sent me the furthest possible away from my house that you can imagine. I missed my son's second open heart surgery. They tortured us. They would flash lights in our eyes every hour on the hour all night long. So when they come around to do the count, they flash it and bang on the metal. So they just make you jump over and over and over. And then they would yell things like, "Go back to sleep, idiot. Go back to sleep." They would say the most cruel, condescending things. There were times when we would be locked down in the cell, and the bathrooms are all broken because everything is run by the inmates. So if something breaks, they make an inmate fix it, and the inmate has no clue. Like, never even had a job doing plumbing or whatever. And you'd ask if you can use the bathroom, like the bathroom outside the cells, and they would laugh at you. They'd ridicule you. They would make fun of it. Most of the guards were very liberal, and they hated. They knew they knew my crime, and they knew that I was endorsed by the GOP and ran for state representative and all that because they read the details. They knew about my cousin Dan Vidandi and the InfoWars connection, and they would call me conspiracy theorist, lunatic, cult leader, say that I'm in a cult because I'm Christian, say I'm a right-wing Christian extremist, all these crazy things over and over and over and over. And they would even, like when they would see me, they go, "Oh, here's Alex Jones again," or "Here's Alex Jones again." And literally, not just say it in a joking, like friendly way, like in a way where they wanted to like hurt me, and they really would. I mean, they put me in the hole in solitary confinement for 60 plus days, and I missed my son's open heart surgery. A sex offender lied, went to the lieutenant, said I shoved him out of my cell. They reviewed the situation, saw that it wasn't true, and they brought me back. But I had to sit in solitary confinement in federal prison in a maximum holding tank for 60 plus days, and it's the most bizarre experience of your life. You will start hallucinating and having delusions. And I remember when a fruit fly made it into the cell, it was the happiest moment of my life. I felt like, wow, like I was looking at the fruit fly and just imagining like the intricacies of life and what life is and how technical life is. And I like wanted to be friends with the fly, like the fruit fly. Like, it's the most bizarre experience to be deprived of all sensation and sensory deprivation, and it's the most bizarre thing you could ever experience. And you hear other inmates screaming. Some of them are laughing because they literally are mentally ill. They lost it. Like, some of them are never coming home, so they turn it into a game. I remember they'll set fire. They find ways because they'll smuggle lighters and stuff that they buy from correctional officers. They'll smuggle them in their body, and once they're like in the actual the people will get in trouble on purpose so they can sell drugs to the inmates that are in the hole. And how they get paid for it is another inmate will vouch for that inmate, or they won't sell it to you. And then how you get paid is that inmate's word is like, they don't know if the inmate's good for their word or not, from their reputation on the compound. And then the one call you're allowed for 5 minutes per month, that inmate will call a family member to tell them to cash app the other inmate that's in solitary confinement. So you're living in a whole new underground world, and it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. Like, basically, in order to pass the drugs and everything to each other in the hole, they would take their jumpsuits, and make long fishing wire, basically out of cotton from the drawstring, or the elastic around the band that's stitched into the jumpsuit, and they would fish back and forth. And some people are going to sit in the hole for over a year. So, this stuff is crazy. I can't believe I know this stuff and experienced it now. Like, it's kind of, it's hard to believe that I experienced any of this stuff. I witnessed 3 wrongful deaths that shouldn't have happened. Overdosing and everything else, and the families probably will never know what happened to their loved one. I leave it all in God's hands, because it's just too much to even carry. But it turned me into a way better individual. I respect life so much more. I'm living life now. I'm living life as though every day was the last, and not for myself, but for God and for everyone around me. And I will never go back to substances. I will never abuse anything, alcohol, pills, any of that. I'll never want to see anybody else, suffer, or it either completely humbles you, the experience, or it destroys you forever, and you either kill yourself. So many guys in there would just kill themselves, like just go into a cell and overdose on purpose, or they smoke K2 and all of that stuff, which is like the synthetic cannabis, but it's usually laced with fentanyl, so they'll know they're going to eventually overdose. Or it's sad. It really is sad. And it is the absolute best place, though, to get the closest you possibly can to God, because there's nothing else to distract you. But yeah, it was a nightmare. And when I was about to get bail, the state came along and charged me with the exact same charges, but in the state, so that if I did get bail to fight the charges from the feds, the state ordered me to be held without bail. So they put a detainer on me. So, and because they put a detainer on me, I had camp points, and I should have been at a federal camp, which means it's not a camp like it sounds nice. It's a prison where there's no fence. So, like, you're allowed to walk outside, and they trust that you're not going to run off.
Yeah.
So, like, when you hear about inmates escaping, it's because they were at a camp and they just walked off. It's not like that dramatic, like where they escape through holes in the wall and stuff. Most of the escapes in prison are just inmates walking off from a work site, or they're at a camp. But yeah, so the state ordered me to be held without bail. They charged me with ghost guns. Now the guns, they're self-build kits, and they were totally legal. They became illegal in the state of Rhode Island after I had been arrested, yet I was still charged with them as if I had broken the law knowingly, and I didn't. I built those with guys from DNL and Midstate, and I built them, but with buying the materials from them, and brought the guns to Elite Gun Range where I had the guys inspect the guns for safety. And all it is a legal self-build kit that you build yourself, and it's not serialized. But you only have to serialize it when you want to transfer it to someone else, sell it off, or ownership. So they didn't pass the anti-ghost gun bill yet in the state of Rhode Island when I had them. Yet while I was in custody, they still charged me with ghost guns. I didn't know how they were able to do that. I couldn't understand it. So I pled guilty in the state of Rhode Island. Oh, and the deal in Rhode Island was I had to plead guilty to everything, even the things that they knew I wasn't guilty of, and pretty much said, like I had told them 1,000 times I had prescriptions for some of the pills, and they still made me plead guilty to the possession of the pills. And then they also made, they charged me with a cyber harassment against my own wife. So now I have a domestic, which disqualifies me from so many jobs. So I have a misdemeanor domestic. And they published all my text messages in the Boston Globe, which they were vulgar and disgusting arguments between my wife and I when I was, dealing with different things. But never anything physical and never anything actual. Like it was all just text messages. And they took those text messages, and that's what they used to block me from getting bail. And then they tried to put a no contact order between my wife and I, which really would have destroyed our family. And my wife was by my side the whole time. She did not want that charge. She didn't even know that they would charge me with that. She went to the Attorney General's office multiple times and said, you cannot put a no contact order between a married couple and force a domestic charge when no one called police for anything and no one is requesting a domestic charge. And they said, yes, we can pick that up ourselves. So the state decided to charge me as if they were defending my wife, while my wife was literally telling them to drop that. It's not even close to what actually happened, and it's out of context. And they were telling my wife they're treating it like an attempted murder case because of the text messages with severe vulgarities and threats and stuff. And no one ever texted that they're going to murder anyone or do anything crazy like that. It was just mostly just arguments, like basic immature, spiritually immature. We were both spiritually immature at the time. And I'm sorrowful and I'm remorseful, and none of that ever happened again. And it didn't happen before that, and it never happened after that. If you were to hold a picture up the day before I was arrested, the day I was arrested, like the mugshot that we used for the podcast, and then a picture now, you would say this doesn't add up. The guy is not. This is not the guy. I was on the trampoline with my kids the day I got arrested. And they left me in a cell for 8 hours, 10 hours before they took my mugshot. And they took my rings and jewelry. I used to collect jewelry. They took all of that off. They took my wedding ring away, which they're not supposed to take. And I was all disheveled. My hair looked all greasy. So the picture looks crazed.
Right.
But if you know the context, you would just see that it was a guy who just looks tired and depressed and was literally just crying. And so of course the whole thing was a big tar and feathering. And I'm not saying I'm not remorseful. I'm very sorrowful for everything I've done, all the problems I caused around me, the actual family related problems, everything that was not related to this big propaganda event. I'm actually sorrowful, and I really, I'm happy that my wife and my family and friends and everyone that knows me forgives me, gives me a chance to prove myself that I'm not this substance abuser, and that's not who I am. I don't really like the term, oh, I'm an alcoholic, or hi, my name is so and so, and I'm a crack addict. It's that's not who you are. Yeah, that's maybe a temporary stage in your life. Even if it dominated your life for more than half of your life, that's still not who you are. Hi, my name is Ron, and I'm a child of God. That's who I am. God created me, and I was immature. I went through my growth, spiritual growth, different stages, and now I'm doing what God wanted me to always do. That's who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So so by knowing some of these other cases that are similar to yours, that there may be some litigation that can be brought forth, that possibly having your stuff, I'm assuming that you're trying to probably look at getting your stuff expunged, and then
so on a federal level, I'd have to see if I can get post-conviction relief, they call it, which, like all the guys that went to prison for cannabis, and then once they decriminalized it, they were able to get like what they call post-conviction relief.
Yep.
Because federally, and they're trying to change, actually, they've been changing the laws for the better because of a couple things with Trump and promises that, he's trying to make it where you, like federally, once you get charged, there is zero expungement. You need to be pardoned, um, and it's basically an act of Congress to clear your name to ever have your rights back. But when it comes to the state, you can get pardoned, or I mean, you can get expungement and stuff. In my case, I'm trying to get the sentence vacated if I can get help. I've been talking to a couple lawyers. I'm not sure what that would entail, but it could potentially. I mean, it would be like I'd have to go back to the same judge that sentenced me and convince her that the Supreme Court just said that it was an unconstitutional charge. Would you drop the charges against me, vacate the decision?
Yep.
And they can still go against the Supreme Court, even though the Supreme Court ruled that it is unconstitutional. It's strange. It's strange how it works, and it's designed that way for checks and balances. But the problem is, it's been abused to the point where it's not checks and balances anymore. It's like trying to shine light on the abuse of the system. So in the state, and because the state purposely charged me, they wanted the domestic. They had to get me with a domestic because if I had beat the feds, I would have had my guns back. The ultimate one-trick pony to make sure no one ever gets their Second Amendment back is a domestic charge because it makes it look like it's a violent person.
Right.
And in my case, they knew I was so far away from violence that, I mean, I used to do homeless outreach and do all kinds of stuff my entire life. So they knew that they couldn't pay me as this violent person, but they found the smoking gun, the text messages from an argument with my wife from 2 years prior. They got those text messages and they held my feet to the fire. And if I didn't plead guilty to all of the state charges, then I would have to serve state time after I came home from the feds. But because I agreed to plead guilty and just wanted to hurry up and get home to my kids, I now have a 10-year suspended sentence hanging over me while I'm on probation for the next 5 years. So all it takes is for one violation. All it takes is to get pulled over or anything. That's why I'm walking the straightest line you could ever imagine. They can violate you. And if I violated in the state, it would also violate in the feds because I'm on supervised release from the feds. So I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to be the best stand-up. I mean, I'm advocating for myself. Everyone's allowed to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, I take back my guilt. I'm just saying it's an unconstitutional thing. I'm not saying I didn't do it. I'm saying that it's not a constitutional law. And the Supreme Court said it. And it's not something that qualifies to allow you to have your rights stripped from you when you're no longer a substance abuser.
Right. Yeah. The initial crime that they're trying to, or that they did try you for, it's not a violent crime, and it's I don't find it to be a crime either. Especially if you're not making any threats or any gestures or any indication of using any of the so-called firearms that you had. It really narrows down without them saying that just because they knew that you had those amounts of firearms, that was really the reason why they wanted to get you in the first place. It had nothing to do with you having a substance abuse or whatever argument that you had 2 years prior. That's irrelevant to the case at all. And the fact that they had you on all of these corners and sides to have you, to basically force you into pleading guilty to something that even by law is a misdemeanor. as far as having a so-called substance abuse, whatever they clarified it as, and how they proved that is beyond me also, because they only got you on the fact that you didn't mark down on the form if you're in possession of an unlawful substance, which is a vague and broad statement. Because anyone that doesn't have any criminal record or has no criminal intent looks at that and says, well, I'm not a criminal. I don't have any, I got friggin' aspirin in my cabinet. That's not, whatever. Or I'm taking a medication that my doctor prescribed to me. That's not illegal. So yeah, I'm not going to mark that. I don't have any unlawful substance. So I don't know, man. I'm just as perplexed as you are. I'm just as confused as you are.
I can't get it. I can't wrap my head around it. And it's like, I didn't think that I was that important enough, but for any of this to happen. But what it was the situation was prime for them to use, because they brought me up over and over and over every time they passed the new laws. So I used to fight with the guys, at City Hall, at State House, protesting against, you remember all the posts and pictures of protesting against the ghost gun bill, the 10-round magazine bill.
Yep.
And then guess, once I was in their custody, they brought my name up. The Attorney General brought my name up specifically when they were mentioning that they want to change the laws. And they changed the laws, and they made sure to reference me as basically like a reason for it. And it's sad. I feel castrated. Like, I feel like I'll never get to enjoy going hunting with my kids. I'll never get to, and I was like, when I get into things, I'm like a fanatic about it. When I was a kid and I loved Legos, I had thousands of Legos. Everything was Legos. When I was into baseball cards, I had thousands and thousands of baseball cards. When I was into Magic the Gathering card game, I had cases of thousands of cards. When I got into guns and I had, all of a sudden I was a millionaire, now I got hundreds of guns, because they're expensive, so you can't have thousands, but
Right.
I mean, unless you can. But then and then that's also so bizarre to think about. I literally made $1 million. I was making peanuts as a school teacher, and then all of a sudden I have $1 million in the middle of the pandemic nonsense, when everyone else is suffering financially, and I had this massive pile of money come to me. And it never was physical. It was always in the ether. It was always digital. So my mind never wrapped itself around $1 million. And then, so I buy the house. I buy all the guns and ammunition. I start buying bags, hiking materials, everything you can imagine. It was obviously not malicious, because I bought museum quality pieces. If it was any malicious intent, you only need one gun or two guns, in case the first one was to break down. And I never, ever thought that anything I did was going to land me in prison. I mean, one of the guns I bought was a $65,000 World War II Japanese Yi. The gun isn't even worth anything on its own, like like the way it's constructed. It's just the intrinsic value that was used in combat, and it was, blood-stained, and the history to it, and rare. It was a $65,000 rifle. If you were to look at it, you'd say it's probably like a $600 rifle, but knowing the history and its rarity, that was a museum quality piece. I also had 1901 Lugers that were $10,000 that were stamped with American, a very famous German pistol that was used 40 years later, World War II. And I was into it. I wasn't just buying them like a madman. I was buying them because I was into it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was my hobby. And I crafted them because it was my hobby. I enjoyed it. I liked it. And they kept saying I had like a childlike fascination. Doesn't every guy that looks at guns and cars and drums and everything else? And then, when I was into records and CDs, I had a store's amount, enough to put up a storefront for records and vinyl and all that. When I go through stages with things. In fact, before I got arrested, I was already starting to put aside the firearms I didn't like anymore in my collection to get ready to sell back to be able to afford because I had overspent my money to be able to afford a storefront to have the store for the firearms. And I wanted to do it over here in Barville. I had the active FFL paperwork, everything. I had all kinds of paperwork, and it was just all of a sudden not coming through. So I assumed something strange might have been up. And I just, I don't want, because my wife always says, you have to watch out how you say everything, because the judge could think that you haven't been humbled or you're not showing humility. I am definitely humbled by the situation. I want to show humility. I'm just doing some self-advocating for the fact that I don't like the idea that I lost my rights forever.
Yeah.
I'm not denying anything. In fact, I did the things I did because I didn't think that I didn't think that it was a federal crime. Like, I'm not saying I purposely did drugs. Like, I just didn't think that it was that bad.
Right.
And because people drink and drive all the time, and people collect sports cars. Jay Leno has hundreds of cars, and he's got his mansion in Newport, and he's got all these cars, and he drinks. So because he drinks, does that make him a prohibited person where he should never get behind the wheel?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or
Right.
an alcoholic? It's like the founding fathers were literally doing opium and cocaine and everything else. Like what? And
How else did they come up with all the stuff that they did, right?
right. My phone is at 1%, so I'm not sure if I have a charger or if we want to wrap up and then maybe do part 2 at some point.
We could wrap up and do a part 2 and do some follow up along the lines of where you're getting at as far as your case and all that stuff and getting your stuff expunged. And man, that judge, if you're listening, if you happen to see this, I think you need to do some justice here and to do the right thing. And in my opinion, you sent an innocent man into jail, regardless of the fact that if there was a substance abuse or not. I don't think he had to do 5 years, 3 years, and I don't think he had to get his firearms taken. That's a violation of his rights for a violent crime that he did not commit. And it's almost like it's like that Minority Report. You were prejudging, using the prejudging manuscript of thinking whether or not he's going to use it, and I think that's why they did that in the first place to you, man. And unfortunately that happened to you, but God willing, you've come out of this and you're headstrong and you're positive about it. You're humble about it. And you're advocating for yourself, and whatever I can do on my end, I'll gladly have you on here as many times as you need to in order to get the word out. And I think everyone should follow your case for sure, brother. I'm sorry. I am sorry that it happened to you on the corruption of our state and our country, but I'm glad that it didn't break you. God willing that it did not break you. Yeah.
I really appreciate that, and I appreciate your support. And thank you for having me on. And yeah, I'd love to do another episode, and we can get into the different people I met in prison and different things, and get into the January 6th guys. I'm friends with Jake Lang and Ryan Samsel and all those guys, and
Awesome.
Black and Tan, he was another J6er, and those guys kind of helped me get through because I felt like at least I wasn't alone. And then once they got released, I felt like when they got pardoned, I still had a few months left. I felt like left behind. But yeah, we'll get into some cool stuff. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. And total support from my end for your show. So
absolutely, brother. Same here, man. We'll be in contact. We'll get you back on here, brother. I appreciate you. I really do. God bless you. And everybody else that's tuned into The True Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. Oh, if anyone could follow you real quick, do you have any links that people could follow you?
I'm on YouTube. I'm trying to build a channel. It's called The Messiah Mission. The Messiah Mission. Because I am Messianic, a pretty hardcore Christian. I learned about the Messianic faith in prison. Mostly just kind of going back to studying the old Aramaic and things like that. So, yeah, so I appreciate it. So shalom to everybody.
Shalom. All right,
Amen.
brother. God
Thank
willing,
you.
we'll do this again. I appreciate you. Love you, brother in Christ. And everybody else that's out there, please like, share, subscribe. Herb Anthony, I see you out there too, brother. I appreciate you for sharing this. Like, share, subscribe on The True Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. And we're going to be on TikTok, Instagram, and all the other major platforms next time. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you. Ronald, thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Amen.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say it.
I'm trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to the brink. A lot of us here have a calling
I can only show you the door.
to awaken others.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Spreading a message.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time is coming.
At a
Train
tipping
can't be stopped.